Happy hour.
Some random geek is going to be probably late then.
Yeah, that's okay. He was in Steve Shives things. Hey, everyone, it's
Yeah.
Kristi. Welcome to the November Patron Hangout, where we have a return of many familiar faces. We're lacking some faces from previous hangouts, but it's also good to see people we haven't seen for a while. So, in the spirit of that, before we have everyone introduce themselves and talk to them, talk about what's going on with them, it's been a long time since we've seen Matthew in the Hangout. In fact, the last time I remember him being in a Hangout was Ask Cam. Do you guys remember Ask Cam when
Oh
he
yeah.
was in the theater and he left his camera on and all you could see was his butt bouncing around and the floor underneath him? So, coming straight off of Ask Cam, we have a return of Matthew with a slightly different take on his theater interactions, really. But yeah, can you tell us a bit? Basically, just tell the same story you told before we went on air.
So I just finished with a local play here in the DC region at Roundhouse Theater. The play was How I Learned to Drive by Paula Vogel, and it has very little to do with learning to drive. In fact, the whole driving lessons portion of it is a metaphor for the abuse the main character suffers at the hands of her uncle. And it's this mix of uncle giving her driving lessons, but at the same time, literally molesting her. And the opening scene is so creepy because it just very casually walks that line between a legitimate person legitimately training someone to be a good driver and then molesting her. And then the play basically studies the crazy family that's involved. The play was written several years ago, maybe 15 years ago, but it is very important for our time right now. One of the neat things Roundhouse did was, most theaters, after certain performances, may have cast members or crew or directors, designers answer questions from the audience. They did away with that. They didn't do that at all because after every performance, they had local therapists, psychologists, counselors at the theater answering some of the emotional issues that the play has brought up. So the play was masterful from a technical standpoint. From an acting standpoint, the five people in that play were just absolutely amazing. Mostly because three of those characters have to play various characters in the life of the girl who's growing up. So they did each of those characters. They separated each of those characters amazingly. But what they focused on was the emotional aspects, like how do people relate to being molested? How do people relate to being molested, seeing that on stage right in front of them? How do people relate this to what's going on today in our world, even though this play is much older than the stuff that's happened in the last couple of months? So they did a very good job, not only putting on the production, but also taking care of the audience after the production.
Oh,
So one of the things I mentioned earlier in our chat was if you can find recent interviews with Paula Vogel, because she does go into depth. She was very reticent when the play first came out to talk about how it affected her personally, but she's gone more into depth later on as to what personal incidents in her life caused her to write this play and why she needed to put it on paper. There's even a couple lines in the play that today are hard to listen to. In fact, I will mention one of those lines because near the end of the play, our main character, who goes by the nickname Little Bit, confronts her uncle, Uncle Peck, and she says this line, "Who hurt you when you were 11?" And Paula Vogel today is like, if I knew what I knew now back when I wrote this play, I wouldn't have put that line in there because we know there's no point in blaming victims for the abuse that they give out because we know that there's no correlation there. But she hasn't updated the play, and it always becomes a point of discussion after the play about that line. And there's always mentioned how if Paula Vogel had that play to write again, how she would have done like that specific portion of the play differently.
Wow. Really, really profound stuff. And yeah,
Mhm.
the counselor's bit too, which I commented on as being such a great case study in the role of arts in the community. And it's not just entertainment. There's a psychological processing that we do when we experience drama, and paintings and music as well, but drama in a particular way because things are, being enacted or reenacted. And so, yeah, people don't know what those kinds of that kind of stimuli can bring up. So making that Q&A afterwards into a place to kind of process that before they just hit the real world again, kind of create a little bubble there for them to sit in before they had to get up out of their seats. I think it's just a very, very compassionate and thoughtful and smart thing to do.
Yeah, the dramaturge and the other members of this theater did a very good job of handling the audience needs. Not just let's just throw this drama at people. Let's take care of them before they walk out the door. Like one of the things they did was on every wall of that theater, on the back of every bathroom stall, they had a list of all of the local support groups in DC, Maryland, Virginia, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Fairfax County, Arlington County, all of the support groups for whether it's child abuse, whether it's elder abuse, spousal abuse, all that. They had all of those numbers there available for everyone.
That's a good deal. Way to go.
So it was definitely it was probably the most prestigious theater I've worked with so far to date, but it was what the story was and how they handled it just made it all the better.
Definitely. And in the complete opposite spirit, normally I run things and call on people, but I'm tired today. So it's just going to be free for all. Y'all do what you want.
Okay. So I teased this at the end of Siege Last Patron Hangout just a little while ago that my Thanksgiving was thankfully, well, politically, I didn't talk politics. I was kind of conflicted about the holiday itself. I was thinking, should I mention about the imperialistic, colonialist terribleness of like this holiday that we are celebrating and give thanks to on? I didn't. And so my stepmother made sure one thing she was planning to do was get me drunk. And so what she did made something. It was in a tall glass. It happened to be a Seahawks glass, but she got out of the refrigerator and it had like liquid on the bottom and something that solidified at the top. It turned out to be like cream essentially. So then, you want me to drink this? Okay, you have to stir it. You stir it. Okay, I'll stir it and stuff like that. What are you made of? What's this made of? Pineapple vodka with a bit of pineapple in it actually, and creamed rum. So it was that tall glass of just straight hard alcohol. And she handed it to me, said, here, drink it. And it's like, no, you expect me to drink this whole thing? I know you wanted to get me drunk, but you expect me to drink the whole thing? No, we'll share it. Okay, thank God. Because I'm not going to finish this whole thing tonight. I don't want to. And it was strong, yes. Eventually, to finish off my half of the glass, I just poured some. I need to mix this with something, or else it's too strong. Sunkiss. There we go. Okay, now I can finish the rest of this. And that was my Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Sometimes that's a way to get through a family meal.
The meal was fine. There wasn't much. What?
I've been waiting to say this since the beginning of Steve's chat, but I see you're wearing your Boba Fez.
Yes, the Boba Fett Fez. Okay, time for the fashion.
No, not Boba Fett Fez. Boba Fez. Come on.
Yes, it is the Boba Fez.
Yes, it's too many words otherwise. I'm old and I don't have a lot of time left. I can't waste time with extra words.
This is one of my favorite hats. The hat I got from the hat maker of the other hats I have, like the R2D2 bullet and stuff like that. And I got it at Emerson Comic Con at a comic book convention. And yeah, it's like I was getting notices and reaction. It was like I asked a question at a panel, and then the moderator is like, "Okay, before I let you ask your question, can I ask you a question? Is that a Boba Fett Fez? Yes, it is. That's awesome." So yeah, but now the rest of the ensemble, the fits is of course one of my favorite t-shirts that I got that McKinney made. Advocates for the corrupt ideas of the postmodern neo-Marxists.
All right.
And now the rest of it, and Lito, I hope you are there. Are you there? Lito?
Guess not.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Because here's what I'm wearing. A nice lovely skirt on.
Oh.
Does it have pockets?
Is it the Doctor Who Van Gogh one?
I just Van Gogh. I don't think it's a Doctor
I think
Who
it's
one.
Starry
I think it's just like Starry Night.
Starry Night Van Gogh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Van
but
Gogh. You guys.
and also the leggings underneath it is Batman. Actually, you can't really tell or something like that. But anyway, that's the rest of the fashion show.
Batman is a fascist.
Yeah, I won't argue. All right, that's the end of the fashion show, then.
Well, one question: your skirt, does it have pockets?
No, unfortunately, no, it doesn't.
Well,
But I'm also
that's too
wearing
bad.
something Doctor Who on my slippers. I'm wearing Doctor Who on TARDIS slippers. So yeah.
So we got the full ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
well, you're just a mess of different genres and.
Mm-hmm.
So how are
That's
you,
all I
Tom?
rule.
Okay, so you guys aren't stepping up yet. Who's up next?
Should I talk, I guess?
Yeah, you talk.
Okay. Hi, it's been a while, everybody. Couldn't come
Okay.
last 2 times, I think. My Thanksgiving was in October, because in Canada it's in October.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, my wife is still away. She's been gone for almost 6 weeks now in her country. And she'll be back in about 3 weeks. I think, yeah, December 14th or something like that. So I'm all by myself. So I just work pretty much, and that's about it. I'm going home next weekend, though, to my town, just in a different province, but it's only like a 3-hour drive, so I can see my folks and my sister and my friends, so that'll be nice. Plus I can drive more than like 5 feet, because my workplace is so close. It's like a 2-minute drive, so that'll be nice.
If it's
Yeah, other
a
than that,
2-minute drive, why don't you walk?
well, it's
Canada. It's 6 feet of snow.
it's also, but if I were to walk it would be like probably an hour, because of the way the streets are. It's like 2 minutes drive, but
don't make it friendly for
no,
pedestrians.
not really. No, there's actually no sidewalk on the side of the street that I'm on, so
Yeah,
I'd
so you
have to
couldn't even take a bike if you need to get off.
I don't think there's any buses in this town, unfortunately. It's only 10 or 15,000 people. On an island, the island province of Canada known as Prince Edward Island, which is where I live now.
You think they'd have really well integrated public transportation then, and like bike paths, and make it easy for people to get around. There's only the island, right? So
yeah, it's just an island, yeah, and it's it's not like Rhode Island, which is like partly on land. This is completely on an island, this territory of this province. So there's a bridge though that connects it. Thank God, since like 2000. Because before that, you had to take a ferry, and it was really hard to get on and off.
You guys could definitely have an overground subway or an overground rail, like running through the city with stops and stuff, I bet.
Yeah, I guess maybe they just don't have money for that. I don't know. A lot of the
make
small
everybody
towns
buy cars.
Yeah, well, it's because the country's so large. So, like, you only find like anything beyond bus services in like Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa. The big cities like that. So.
Yeah, I just kind of wonder with the climate change, if that is going to have to be scaled down a lot more, and urban planning is going to have to start taking into account reducing carbon emissions more aggressively. I mean, I actually think it's probably too late. I think we're all fucked, but might as well make an effort to slow it down a bit, like the Titanic. You want to end up on the bigger side of the Titanic as it's going down, not the first bit that fell off into the water.
Well, they say that if they had just like drove straight into the iceberg, it would not have sank the ship. It would have just the system would have worked.
Yeah, it was a tearing across.
Yeah,
they didn't build the flood walls all the way up to the top because they never expected to be scraped across, which is kind of stupid if you think about it. But
they correct that in the future, all in the sister ships and everything. So
yeah, they figured out design flaw. They got it on the first, after the first one. Yeah.
The sad part was the architect went down with the ship.
Yeah. Is this too soon, you guys? Is that like
too soon in 3 movies?
Yeah.
Some of us are old enough to remember
headlines. Yeah.
Grandparents that were alive at that time. Actually, almost parents and some uncles.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm old. Yeah. A
That's
link
okay,
to the
though.
past. You used to
We
be-
know. You say that every month. We know. Shut up.
Yeah, I'm not out here bragging about how I'm like, Gen X, so.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have more years. And that's the only bragging point I have. Give me my pride.
More years and fewer hairs.
Yeah, well,
You rock that look. You own it.
much less shampoo.
That's true. It cost saving.
And I've had the same small tube of hair gel for probably 4 or 5 years now.
Tom, that just might be expired now. You might just throw that out for health reasons, not like even because you need a new one. Like you need a new one, but not like because it's empty. Just 5 years on your shelf. That's going to break down. The chemicals are going to start to break down.
I don't eat it. I don't understand.
But Tom, do you use beard oil?
No. I'm a old school purist.
Yeah, he's not a hipster.
No. If I
You need a Pratchett hat, Tom.
There's no beard butter in his house.
We gotta fix that.
It's in my. I have a hat that makes me look like something like Terry Pratchett in that hat, in that broad rimmed full.
Yeah, put it on.
It's in the car. You want me to go get it?
Okay.
No, I'm not going to.
Yeah,
go out in
your
the
house is
cold.
your gun. Go get it. Go get it. How far away is it? Like 2 minutes? Like as far as?
Well,
he's fucking up to his car.
He's on the move.
We're gonna get the full. I'm gonna put it on lock screen when he comes back as well. And Dudley Do Right's here to match up with him.
I got the jacket too.
Dudley Do Right loses against Terry Pratchett. I'm sorry, but.
Oh
Like,
yes.
Arm wrestling? Like how do you judge that? Or like a curling competition?
No, I'm just going to say that Tom wins.
Are they both Canadian or something? Like, I don't understand what the metric is here. Like why you're like saying you're like Muhammad Ali is better than Shakira. Like I don't know what metric we're working with here.
It's notable because they and by them I mean the Mounties, the RCMP, they still wear those uniforms. But ceremonial. Like whenever they take a picture, like that's what they wear. It's like, because their normal street uniforms are like I think they're yellow striped with like dark blue pants or something like that.
Look at this. By the way, we want to talk to Bruce too. Look at this. There we go. You're on lock screen. Everyone sees you. It's all Tom all the time on this channel.
No, it's not.
It is right now.
Okay.
You're on screen. You're locked on.
My headphones won't work with this.
No, just hold up with one hand. Be like a cool DJ. Just put one hand down. Keep the other one on your ears. There you go. Yeah, you're rocking it.
And we got the welcome to the stage, the nice little cool Lex from Tom McDonald. That's Terry Pratchett. Give it up to Tom and Terry.
Woo!
You do look a little like Pratchett with that hat.
A little bit, yeah. I look more like him with a slightly different beard, or not style because I have no style, but slightly different beard configuration.
I'm gonna take the lock off here.
I'm gonna take this off because I can't.
You can't put your headphones on.
Yeah, that's why I purposely always buy like either not over the head or just it has to be around the ears or just ear pieces for like my headphones because most of the hats I have does not work with any of those over the head headphones and stuff like that. Like
I have earbuds, but I never think to use them.
So how about people at the end of the queue there, Bruce and David? How you guys doing? Anyone want to jump in?
Marianne.
Hey. Well,
Hi,
Marianne, I'm chat before. Hey, mate.
Well, we don't have Thanksgiving in Britain, so I've got nothing to say about that.
You just had Thursday. Like me in Germany. We just had Thursday.
Well,
That's it.
Thursday.
I missed that. But I've done nothing really to say apart from thank you very much to Kristi and Kevin for owning Sargon during the week. That was just again. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. That was so much fun. Like, I would definitely go round 2 now. I realized a couple errors. So I'm gonna just say this now. So if he ever wants to hear this, he'll know what I'm gonna bring. But when he was asking me to define far right, next time I'm just gonna ask Alexa. I'm not gonna say her name too loud, otherwise she'll come back to me. And just be like, how do you define the far right? Or I'll do it on Google. Hey Google, and just look it up, because it basically said the extreme of a right wing of a party. That's what far right is. So you don't have to be alt right to be far right, but all people are far right. And so anyway, next time instead of arguing points, I'm just going to look it up. Like, I'll look up the name of the 7 Justice Democrats.
Patriotism.
If you're a traditional conservative, that's like far right, and they're not alt right, are they?
Oh, well, Sargon said that the alt right are cucks compared to him on immigration, because he just doesn't want to stop immigration for certain countries. He wants to stop all immigration into Britain.
Are we still talking about that guy anymore? I thought he's irrelevant now, isn't he?
Oh, he came on because so this is it. He was becoming irrelevant. And so he had V reach out to me and Kevin asking if he could come on a show to talk about the midterms. So we had him on the happy hour, which you missed. You should go back. Sorry about the audio. It was all Kevin's fault. But I just smacked him around for like an hour, and he just took it. And it was.
I think I was there though. Or was that the second time? Because I was there banning a lot.
Yeah.
That was spam a lot.
That was a shit show. All that live chat. There was like actual Nazis. There was people.
Yeah.
Worski showed up with his fans, and then there was
Medicare. Well, yeah, Worski was in there. That's right.
Yep.
Medicare was.
He got.
Medicare is a streamer like this.
There was people yelling about Carl's wife miscarrying and all this other stuff.
Yeah, that was
never heard of, and then
Yeah. So sorry, you guys now know the story that Medicare was sniping the stream, and then when they saw, because they had the chat on his screen that they were watching, and so they saw you guys banning people, they just all came over. To mess with you.
Yeah.
And so that's why that happened. And obviously we never expected that. And we had slow chat. I had slow chat on for the next one, but that one seemed to be fine. But thanks to all the mods on that. You guys did a great job.
And also,
amazing. I saw some random geek apologize for banning people who said milk-fed gimp.
Yeah.
That was a nice public ownership of, like, I didn't realize that you guys were referring to Kevin's thing. So that was nice of you.
Yeah. I mean, like, when I was like seeing like 1488 or like the N-word and N-word, I was just quick with the ban hammer almost, and then it's just like I forgot that Kevin Logan referred to V as the milk-fed gimp, so it was like I was just not sure, and then aired on the side of just be gun ho with it, and so when I realized that, it's like, oh crap, I'm holding the people in the live chat to a higher standard than say Kevin on the stream, and so I felt bad for that. So I apologize to anyone that got banned or for just saying milk-fed gimp. I apologize for that.
Yeah,
I missed some. I think in that barrage, I think I got 2, maybe 3 banned, but it was going so fast, so much got through. I mean, the rest of you guys did amazingly well. I was just lost.
Yeah, usually in those situations, what's best to do is to not try to follow the live chat, but scroll up.
Yeah, that's what I did.
I was doing that, but it was going so fast. It was
underneath it. Glowing.
By the time I got my cursor in the right place and clicked it, I was clicking on the next one.
Oh, right, because they already dealt with it.
It was no, because it was going so fast.
Oh, okay.
I would get ready to click on it, and by the time I actually pushed my finger down, it was
yeah, but if you scroll up to earlier messages, it won't keep moving.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, just so for future.
You have to scroll up high enough, though.
Yeah,
if you're
high enough.
Yeah, okay. If you're near the bottom already, then like it'll
15
jump
or
up.
20.
Okay, okay. What I was doing was in the live, the immediately live screen of chats.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Leslie,
if I had scrolled up, it would have been okay. All right.
Yeah. So just here we go. Useful advice for people to moderate.
Tech support online and an unrelated stream that.
Well, not really.
I'm not moderating the chat for.
I mean, I think everybody, if anyone here isn't a moderator on the channel, let me know and I'll put your channel. I have to put a link to your YouTube channel in a special box buried behind like 3 different tabs in the Creator Studio. It's a pain in the ass, but
or go to the live chat. Or go to the live chat of this chat right now. Type in and just say hello, or it's like, can you make me a mod? And then Kristi can go in with the 3 dots and make that person a mod. But it has to be admin to make people mods.
Yeah.
Like
so if you guys do that now, like I'll do it before the end of the show. I'll look it up while somebody else is talking and ignore you. But so can I just say that? So I know that a lot of I saw Atheism is Unstoppable got banned. I know Worski got kicked out of the Sargon one. Armored Skeptic.
Congratulations, Sabrina, to banning Andy Worski.
Armored Skeptic complained when Larry Yellingman kicked him out of the Sargon one. And I haven't really seen.
No, that was the midterms one.
The midterms one? Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. It's a midterms one.
He just got put in a timeout, though. I think, if I remember correctly.
Why the fuck do these people are surprised to be kicked by us?
Well, this is what I was kind of
complete lack of self-awareness, probably.
I mean,
I think when I haven't really received a lot of backlash for it, me personally, but when it comes to those chats, I could give rules, but then on the other hand, I'm not the one who's in the chat. You guys are in the chat, and you guys are the community. So you have, I think it's more your space than mine. And you guys, are on the happy hour, and we talk a lot. So most of the mods here, if anyone had a problem with how somebody handled it, I would assume you guys would just have a discussion about how do you handle this case, because you guys work well together, and so I'm not going to dictate how you guys decide to moderate the chat, because I kind of trust your judgment. And if it means that if some big racist comes along before he doesn't say anything offensive, and you're like, no, you're not even getting in the club.
Mm-hmm.
Then
I did that to Sinatra said one time. I just nope, you time out or something like that.
So that's my position on it, is that it's your space after thinking about it. And this is why I wanted to build on what Leda was saying, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized that that's not my space, even though it's on my channel, it's your space.
Yeah. Kevin certainly doesn't seem to think that it's, when you do the happy hours, that it's his space.
Everything is Kevin's space.
Yeah. But also,
Kevin is the cat?
Yes, basically.
But Kevin Logan also finds it funny when someone like
he's a cat, and every place is cat place.
Yeah.
Good night, guys. Bye-bye.
Hey, mate, sorry you couldn't stay longer. Sorry, we got distracted. So I hope you're doing well, even though you just had a regular Thursday like me.
I made an observation about Armored Skeptic to someone the other day, that it must really burn him that Kevin featured his girlfriend really early on in the Manosphere series, and he never featured him at all. That's why he's so bitter all the time, right? About everything.
That makes sense.
Dr. Claw,
I'll get
who else has a cat?
Time gadget next time.
What is all that?
Dr. Claw from Gadget and Mad Cat.
Okay, sorry. This is a cultural reference I don't get as a European.
Oh.
Well, it's a European show, though, right? It's a British show. Dr. Gadget.
Yeah, it's Inspector Gadget, isn't it?
Yeah, Inspector Gadget, yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe I just, I only really know the main characters.
You're too old.
I think so. This is I was probably a teenager when the Matthew Broderick movie came out. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there was a cartoon when we were children.
Which is much, much better than that movie anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, the cartoon was so weird and funny.
I have vague recollections of the cartoon. The guy in the trench coat with the hat.
Yeah,
it was. I'm looking at the Wikipedia article. It was 83, and it starred Dawn Adams. So if you remember Get Smart, it's basically that with.
Dun, 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 dun.
And where was it first broadcast?
In Britain.
In Britain, yeah.
When did it come to the U.S.?
Late 80s, early 90s, probably.
Yeah, something like around there.
Yeah, because I was born in 72, so Yeah, that kind of would.
I watched it as a kid and up until I think they aired it until like the mid-90s. You know, but it was just like so funny because like he was like so incompetent that like the cases are always solved by like his niece and her dog because they're like
exactly. That was a cool cartoon.
Good times.
It's weirdly enough just like Case Closed. Now I think about it, Case Closed is an anime series that's been going on for like over 900 episodes. Where it's just like
like 100 volumes in the manga.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 200 or something now. I don't know.
It's been going on for like 15 years and it's still going on right now.
Yeah.
It's a weird show.
Have you watched the anime we talked about, Jonathan? Oh, not yet.
No, not yet. I haven't done that yet. I will eventually. But like, I did watch a Fantastic Planet, which like Lauren has been bugging me about to see, and I did like that movie. Oh, but I did see the new She-Ra. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, would you give it like a 9 out of 10?
Yeah, about there. There's so many things I just love about it. Like when you first meet Glimmer and the Queen in the first episode. First, it started out as just like a commander talking to the Queen, and then it shifts and goes directly into like a mother and daughter conversation, almost without missing a beat. And it's like, and that's where you know the character dynamics between those two characters and get a little bit about those characters that stick in with the rest of the show and stuff like that. And so I love that moment, and it was fitting for the characters. And I love how some of the character designs, like Seahawk, when you look at the character, that character design, you got an idea of what that kind of character is like, and that character matches that character design with his shiny mustache, natural shiny.
But Jonathan, did anyone have big boobs?
No. Not really, but you know what?
That's the quartering reference. His
Kristi isn't interested in a cartoon if she doesn't want to fuck the main protagonist. So
yeah, basically.
But I should thank the quartering for complaining about the new She-Ra, because that can make me interested to watch it, and it is a good show.
Same here. If I hadn't read about all the people foaming at the mouth about the new character design, I wouldn't have watched it. Well, I haven't finished it yet, but yeah, it's nice.
One other thing, I also like it that it is season 1, but yet it didn't like end on a cliffhanger, whereas it was like, want to find out more? Watch season 2. They were still like kind of like loose plot lines and stuff like that, but I felt like I got a conclusive like story arc in the first season and stuff like that. Unlike say like Avatar: The Last Airbender that always ended in a major cliffhanger where the bad guys was winning, or like another show I watched, Dragon Prince, that only had 9 episodes. I thought it was really interesting, but yet it's like, no, it's not satisfactory ending enough. But She-Ra did not have that problem for the first season, so I'm looking forward to the second season.
What's She-Ra on? What platform?
Netflix.
Okay.
It's only Netflix.
All right.
Oh, so David hasn't spoken yet, I don't think. Or maybe I missed it or forgot it.
No, I haven't seen his mic on mute. There he is.
Hey.
No, I haven't.
Hey,
hello.
Dave.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, David.
I felt like I was intruding on your conversation, so that's why I haven't said anything.
That's why I made an effort to explicitly state you aren't excluded. So what's up?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, newbie.
Hello.
So what's up with you so far? Like, are you having a good weekend?
Well, yeah. I shouldn't complain. Plenty of people having a worse weekend, I imagine.
Yeah. We often talk about the weather.
I managed to avoid Black Friday, so yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a popular topic here is often the weather. So how's the weather in your parts? It's true. We talk about the weather.
Well, I'm in Sweden, so you can imagine. Well, actually, I'm in southern Sweden, so it's not that bad. It's around 4 or 5 degrees centigrade.
So that's
here.
Yeah.
So it's warmer than here. So.
Yeah, probably. Actually, I wanted to shout out Tom because I think he answered my. I posted in the Kristi and Kevin happy hour and the happy endings Facebook chat the other day. Song of choice. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Tom responded to that. It's a
To what?
very good song.
I didn't catch that.
Song of choice
Yeah.
in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I remember that post. It's too difficult to respond to that.
Yeah.
Was it something I just posted? Was I don't...
No, you responded in the post. I remember.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I appreciate that because I think that's one to remember.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very, very important for, and I'm saying this with all due respect, Tom, for older people to remember what used to go on not that long ago.
Right.
And what's happening in Sweden right now, you probably haven't heard too much, but because people outside of Sweden don't tend to have that much of an opinion or an awareness of what's happening in Swedish politics, but the far right party, Sweden Democrats, have sort of stranglehold of Swedish politics at the moment.
It's kind of weird to for in other countries, it's like the Sweden Democrats that are the far right party, and to my American mind and stuff like that. But that's kind of just like how in Australia the far right party is the right party, the Conservative Party is the Liberal Party. What
are some of their policies that are right wing?
Well, it's basic fascism. Really, it's their roots are firmly in the Nazi party. They used to be a Nazi party. Actually, their party leader is from where I'm from, so he's a year younger than me. And I used to know. I shouldn't say I used to know him, but I used to know of him when we were teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a guy who didn't really put himself forward that much, but he used to have a following of people that put themselves forward quite a lot, and in all kinds of situations where they could intimidate people, they would do with threats of violence. I'm not so sure about violence if they did actually use it, but they very much threatened violence all the time.
Was this in school or is that going on now too?
No, not in school as such. That would be, I think, probably too much, even for Swedish schools.
Yeah, but during your school years, or is that going on now too?
This was and this is one of those times when it's hard to sort of get the equivalent from US and Canada, whatever. But after what we call primary school, which is 9 years, you have a gymnasium, which would probably be familiar to German listeners anyway. And
just so you know, your mic is rocking a lot, so if you could just hold it a bit still. Sorry, I'm an audio geek.
Well, I'm not moving it at all. But
okay. All right.
Yeah. So after the primary school, the 9 years, you get the secondary school, which is called the gymnasium. And during the gymnasium days, I remember quite vividly these people having quite a lot of activities, not organized by themselves, but sort of counter activities to anyone who was perceived by them to be on quote unquote the left. This was in the 90s, by the way. I'm quite old. And
no, you're not. Only Tom is old.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
of course.
Don't step on my only claim to fame here.
No, I'm in deep respect to Tom for coping with us. Even if I'm saying I'm old, I'm very much in awe of these people who have, without giving up, kept up with this kind of anti-fascism and so on for all these years, when it felt like something that you didn't do.
Yeah. Well, I grew up. I was born 3 years after the Second World War, and fascism, Nazis. That was automatic. No. I mean, that's not us. We're the democracy. We're the other side. And to see what's happening more recently in the country where we're sliding towards that, it's disheartening. And the only thing I can do is try to maintain and keep some history at least. So when new things are coming up, I'd like to be able to say, we've been here before, or this is not us. One or the other. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I'm glad you finished your point. I wanted you to continue it. I was just reflecting, though, about how perhaps the term Nazi, at least for my generation, I'm with you, Tom. Like, when I was growing up, Indiana Jones fought Nazis. This wasn't like a moral gray area here, about free speech rights or anything.
Right.
But coming back to the point, we focus on kind of calling the Nazism, but Nazism is just one sort of subcategory of fascism. It was a national brand. Yeah. And we don't really I don't think we call it Nazism or Nazis instead of fascism. And fascism is the much bigger threat, because Nazism was about a time period, whereas fascism is on the rise, and that is the rise of the far right. And what I think we have to recomport ourselves to is that our challenge for democracy going forward is not fighting terrorism. It's defending democracy within our own borders against people who have anti-democratic tendencies. And they're collectively...
It's not only in the US.
But it's worldwide. It's a global phenomenon. We are, as Democrats, in belief in democracy, we are actually going to have to justify democracy. And I don't ever thought I would have to do that in my lifetime.
Right.
Kristi, are people in Germany worried about the Visegrad countries in Eastern Europe? I mean, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Slovakia?
I do not have the appropriate public polling survey data to answer that question in a meaningful way.
I was reading about it right now.
I think German people are concerned with their own personal Nazis because there's a rise there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't about immigration per se. This is happening in the Philippines. This is autocracies.
It's not about immigration. Immigration in Europe is fine. It's not on the rise. It profits the countries where people go. It's not about. It's just a scapegoat. It's just people are bigots.
Yep.
And you combine that with populism and authoritarianism, and you have fascism.
Yeah, and the people who are not in that fringe but pave the way for them. I mean, for the 11th of November, for the First World War armistice, Macron made a speech where he paid a tribute to Philippe Pétain, for fuck's sake.
Oh, did it?
Oh boy,
I missed that.
Yeah, because he was a war hero of the First World War, but what he did during World War II, I'm sorry, it trumps everything he did before. You don't pay homage to that piece of shit.
Character, because I remember a long time ago in like 2004, I had this discussion with this friend of mine about should people like revere him or hate him, and I'm like, well, you can't do it both at the same time. You can say, well, he did a good job in World War I, but in World War II, basically he sold the country out and ran the pseudo-Nazi regime in southern France, the Vichy regime. Is what I mean.
And this is me being a dumb American or a uneducated American hearing this name for the first time. And so,
it's the guy who was in charge of the Vichy regime in France.
Yeah.
He was the guy who decided to send Jewish people to the German.
Can you explain what the Vichy government was for the other Americans?
Okay, the Vichy government was the government that was put in place by the Nazis during the occupation of France during World War II.
It was just like it was only like southern France because the Germans
northern France. The south was free.
Oh, because I thought that's what Vichy was the south part, and then the north part, like.
No, Vichy is in the center of France, geographically, and the north part was occupied, and the south part was free.
Say free, they were.
We weren't occupied. The Nazis never really managed to capture cities and stuff in the south. Mostly because of geography, I think, because we have thick forests and maquis and mountains.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Vichy regime was a government put in place by the Nazis, basically, who collaborated very enthusiastically, let's say, with the invader.
Yeah.
Not quite on par with Trump, collaborating with Russians, obviously, because there's not an occupation, but kind of, I think, in the same spirit.
Sort of like the Norwegian collaboration government.
Similar, to that.
What's the guy's name that was in the Norwegian? Quisling. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's right. Thank you. The other name for traitor.
Yeah.
Is that where the word came from? Is it that modern?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It sounds really good.
He was well, he had some military grade. I can't remember which, and he had a sort of destitute career before the war, and then he decided that National Socialism was a good thing. And I think that the Nazis never really got on board with him being the Führer of the Norwegian people, but he certainly thought of himself that way.
Wow, I really like that word a lot. And I actually thought it was, sort of like Shakespearean kind of time. So to know this, every day is a school day. Look at that. Educational hangout as well. It's fun.
Yeah, no, it's not a very nice. Nope. You like that word.
Bye, Jim.
No, I'm not leaving. No, I just
Marianne.
Sorry, I
good night.
Good night.
I'm glad you had a good performance. I'm glad you had a good
Marianne.
Rest well.
Schlafo.
Cello to my little friend. That's a reference to like the yesterday's hangouts with Kristi on Kristiosity channel.
I just looked up Vichy France, and apparently it was like southwestern France according to this map, and but also the overseas colonial empire. So, not sure what to say to that.
Yeah, I didn't think that any of France was still resist. I mean, they resisted the whole way through, but I didn't think any part of France was.
I'm not that good in history, so I may be talking out of my ass, but I'm pretty sure that.
No, sorry.
I am from the city of Grenoble, and I'm pretty sure it was never. It's in the south part of France.
Yeah,
and it was never ever taken by the Nazis.
And that's just what I remember. Was like it was like this, not all of southern France, but like just like the southwest, southern west part of everything, and because the Germans didn't want to control that because they felt like they didn't need to. I don't know, or they wouldn't waste the resources. But
well, I thought. Go ahead.
And they also wanted to administer France's over because France's empire was still intact at this point. So Vichy ran the French Empire, like Algeria, all the parts that Japan didn't capture, like basically, and Corsica too, apparently. Because my grandfather fought basically for like 3 or 4 years, well, almost the entire Second World War, and he fought in France a lot. So he told me stories about how they met the Vichy people, and they were supposed to like capture as many of them as they could, put them on trial. So
it was a shit show anyway. The German occupation of France was a real shit show.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, he's certainly controlled the Nazis certainly controlled the whole coastline.
Yeah, like Normandy.
The Westland, the West Wall, and certainly the submarine pins in southwestern France, the southwestern France. Coastline.
If I'm not mistaken, the thing is that the Vichy Republic was occupied late in the war because of what happened in North Africa.
Right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is of course not that I know of it personally, but what I've read is that after the joint allied American-British invasion of North Africa, the Germans simply took control of southern France as well.
Mm-hmm. And there were Allied troops in southern France also. I mean, I think there was an attempted invasion, or at least an incursion into around Marseille, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, what happened was after Normandy, in June '44, I think in July or August, it's called Operation Dragoon, and they invaded southern France.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's sort of like should have 2 fronts to push in on the Germans.
Marseille as well. Yeah.
Okay. That's
but the interesting thing about Pétain is that he's possibly, or if he's not the originator of the phrase, then he certainly used it during the First World War, which is the Nov Patron, which is interesting.
All right.
What does that translate?
Well,
yeah, exactly.
They
the
Gandalf will not
phrase.
pass. Yeah, it's Gandalf basically.
And that was used by the socialists, the loyalists in Spain, in Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, that was their rallying cry was "They shall no pasarán" in Spanish.
Yep.
Yeah, against Franco, you mean?
Yeah, specifically against
fascists.
Right.
Against
in that case, but Pétain used it against the Germans, of course, in the First World War.
Was that
and French?
What is a two-faced piece of shite?
Yeah.
There you go.
And the French president shouldn't be paying homage to him, whatever war hero he was in the First World War.
I'm totally with you on that.
That's obscene.
Yeah, it's sort of like saying Benedict Arnold was a good guy because he took Fort Ticonderoga for the rebels.
Right.
And then well, there was that thing afterwards, but we won't mention that. Yeah, Fort Ticonderoga reenactment.
There's been an interesting conversation going on in Halifax, Nova Scotia, about Edward Cornwallis, who was the founder of that city, but also he paid people bounties to kill native people in that area. So they want to take his statues down, and the Proud Boys showed up at one of the Gavin McGinnis's group.
Formerly group.
Did they kick him out because he's
no. Gavin McGinnis. Yeah, Bronx Blogger told me yesterday in the hangout I was in with the American Anarchists, Social Revolution, the Vegan Anarchists, and I should watch the video of Gavin McInnes leaving the Proud Boys because it's glorious from a Bronx blogger is tell me. So it's like, because the Proud Boys are now on the FBI list of terrorist groups.
Yep.
Gavin McInnes like has to like back out, and this policy video is something I should watch or something like that. So it's interesting. Yeah,
nothing really happened when they showed up to this protest, but they just kind of like had a talk and there was no violence. But I thought there was going to be, because it's their, you know, like a violent, like pseudo, you know, white power group. Well, I guess they are a white power group, but
yeah. Well, they wouldn't say so, but they are.
Right.
Well,
they have.
We're not Nazis. We just want to defend Western values and culture, which is basically what their mantra is, and that's half the people on YouTube too.
We're classical liberals.
I just want to mention that like a great channel that is like have small sub counts right now. Go Fem Yourself. She's back on YouTube and stuff like that, and she has made a great video about the Proud Boys and stuff like that. So please, everyone, go check out Go Fem Yourself. She makes great videos.
Is that recent? Is that really
not too recent? Like a couple of months ago at most.
Yeah, it's like they're the ultimate expression of white aggrievement and white fragility. You know?
Yes,
I have a theory on this because I've seen different reports and I put some pieces together, and I haven't seen anyone make this that I remember clearly argument in the papers. However, he's Canadian, correct?
Yes,
but he's living in
eternal shame. Yes,
yeah, but he's living in the United States right now.
He's one of those anyway.
So he's there on a residence permit, and the group that he leads, the gang that he leads, has just been declared a terrorist organization by the government that he's got a permit from. And so I think his motivation to quit the group and because he's denying it was a gang, because if it was a gang, then it changes the kind of federal laws that could be applied to it. Then it becomes organized crime.
So layers and layers.
They just beat up some gay people in New York City a few weeks ago.
Right. And so I think this whole thing was he's trying to not get kicked out of the country.
Yeah. That gay bashing or whatever bashing was that the one with the samurai sword waving around?
I think it was. Yeah, it was at night. It was not in the day. It was like at nighttime in the evening.
Those are protesters from. I think
it was like I saw it on the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. That's where I saw it.
Right,
They love to go after people like McInnes. Like they're like the number one people like I go to for information about them, McInnes and Rebel Media and whoever else. They just take them on.
I should listen to the Majority Report more often because I've heard nothing but good things about them and their reporting on things and stuff like that. And they also have like one person. I think Michael Brooks is a Marxist, and then like one of the people on the show is like actually part of or participates in Antifa and stuff like that.
That's Amy Peck, freelance writer for different publications, and she runs a podcast called the Intifada. I think she calls it like
I think so.
Yeah. What's your name?
Jamie Peck.
Jamie Peck?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's the only woman there, so it's hard to miss her.
No, I know who you're talking about. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah. And then Brooks has his own show called The Michael Brooks Show, or TMBS by Patreon. Which is a far left show. It's good to it's more far left than like the Majority Report, which is more like a news show. Like they do more like standard left politics, and it's good. Sam Cedar been a very accomplished person. He was a director in Hollywood, and he was on many TV shows as well, and he used to run this show with Janine Garofalo of all people, actually.
Right.
I don't think most people know that. Yeah. She pops up from time to time.
She's cool.
I don't know what she does anymore, and I guess she acts a little bit, but she shows up and they do a show together and stuff like that. And he gets all these really great guests on, like Judy Gold and Matthew Film Guy. He's like their film critic, and it's a great multi-variety politics show.
Well, one of the is there an echo?
Yeah, somebody should mute their mic. I don't know if you're not talking, maybe might mute yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
What were you talking about?
Michael Brooks. Majority Report.
No, the next.
The other people on the channel, the film critic from the other guy he was recommending.
Yeah. What's his name? One of the mods on I think your channel or Kevin's is a songwriter who he and another guy are often on.
Oh, Adam Rainstopter?
Adam, Adam is occasionally, I guess, on there with songs.
Yeah,
I haven't heard him, so I keep listening for it.
He was one. They did. Adam Rainstopter collab with like someone. Forgot the name. And they formed like a one-time group or something like that. And they made a song that's like basically ska, and the song is called "Maga Hypocrite." And they did play that on the Majority Report, and I did listen to it, and yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, they take song missions, I guess you'd call it. There's one guy called Jimmy Reaver Cake that gets a lot of his songs on there. But he's kind of crazy, though, because he's like a Jimmy Dore weirdo guy now. He kind of lost his mind, but that's okay. He still makes good songs, though. But and he really hates Hillary Clinton even to this day. And then there's other people that have done like remixes of stuff for them, like where they like make fun of Gorka and people like that.
Yeah, there is. I was listening to. I was watching a clip today, and they have call-in. And they have some very interesting call-ins. I suppose they put the most interesting ones in separate clips. But this one was a short clip from a woman from Nigeria who was talking about how Trump especially and the American right wing are facilitating evils across the world. And when Trump said if people come to the border and throw stones at soldiers or border guards, the border guards should fire back and treat the stone throwing as lethal weaponry, and they should respond with lethal force. That apparently translated directly to the government of Nigeria doing that in mowing down protesters who maybe were throwing rocks. I don't know. I don't remember the details, but it's so they get the Majority Report gets these people on from places and from situations that you would normally not hear from, and it's sort of a concentrated place to get a lot of very interesting things.
It will spam your feed though.
Yeah, they will.
They cut up their show every day, which is like usually 3 or 4 hours, and they put it up in 40 different clips of it.
Like, wait, just space it out over 2 hours. Just give my feed time to breathe.
Well,
I don't want a window of you.
I got nothing else to do, and I get spammed by other things that are not as welcome as the Majority Report. So I like the Majority Report.
That's why I don't sub to those people, because I don't want to get their content in my feed. So.
Well, I sub to like over 450 different channels, but like the number of channels I ring the notification bell is all the leftist channels that I can think of. So yeah, I will I don't watch all of the videos that show up on my feed. I try to at least watch some of the videos that show up on my feed, but it's a lot that I just skip over. Like the Majority Report, I just skip over and stuff like that. And am I insane? I guess maybe but there's a lot of people that I just sub to, and yet I need to binge watch a lot of different channels. I need to binge watch Angie Speaks because I sub to her, and she's going to do a hangout later on today. I need to binge watch Non-Compete.
She's fucking amazing. I love her.
Yes, she is great.
I'm friends with her on Facebook, and I don't know. I'm happy to know her. She's an amazing person.
Angie Speaks.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sub there.
Yeah, there's a lot of like channels I need to like binge watch because I haven't watched much of like Three Arrows or great content yet, and it's like Kristi, your channel. There's a lot of videos I haven't watched on your channel, like the historical Jesus and like the patriarchy videos. I need to like go back and rewatch and stuff like that because there's great content there.
Man, that stuff's old.
Oh yeah, the historical Jesus is amazing. I love this. I love that series.
So do they exist?
I miss Kristi's take on the historical Jesus.
Sorry, man. I got tired. Like, I got promoted at work because they found out how good I am. So, like, now I got real stuff to do, and I got less
you're
time.
in Germany, so you're probably a Führer.
Yes, mid-management Führer in.
Are you Gruppenführer?
I'm a work package leader now. Woo.
So you're a Gruppenführer. That's pretty good. That's like it's almost a field marshal.
Maybe over the holidays, because I've got, being Germany, we've got the 24th through the 26th off. So like between the weekend before, I'm off from Saturday to Wednesday, then like 2 days, and then I've got another 4 days off because of the 31st and the 1st are Monday and Tuesday. So maybe I'll finish it then. Maybe I'll do it as live streams rather than cut up videos because it's harder for me to do those now.
In Canada, 26th is an actual holiday called Boxing Day, which is I also call Other Black Friday because that's basically
basically.
For no reason. But
yeah, it used to be about sitting around and eating leftovers.
Yeah.
Watching, talking about the Queen's speech then next
British holiday in origin, and then we kind of adopted it. It's another day off, so it's good.
Yeah.
So David, I don't know if you felt like you're feeling more included now to pipe up, and Matthew too. We heard from you at the beginning, but we haven't heard much from you now. I'm the teacher coming over, wrapping your desks with my ruler. Tick, tick, tick.
I guess the question is, what would you like to know? The only thing I didn't talk about, I talked about my theater stuff, but I didn't talk about Thanksgiving, which if you go back through Kristi's archives, like I probably about this time 2 years ago, I talked about our Thanksgiving celebration, which is I call the 3 turkey Thanksgiving celebration because it's a turkey a day for 3 days for the number of people who can fit in the house, where we not only have amazing food, because this year we had 2 professional cooks cooking the food, so it was just absolutely amazing. My only job was 1, acquiring said turkeys, 2, getting turkeys into brine so that when they put them in the oven, they come out amazing, just absolutely moist and amazing. But then making it a respite, because we've gone 2 years now of just this intense how do we get through, for lack of being able to sugarcoat, how do we get through this administration, where it's just tiring us out emotionally to have a respite for 3 or 4 days where we just take care of ourselves, where we express gratitude for everything that's gone well for us, for those of us have, or gratitude for being able to surmount problems that we've maybe had in the past year, so that we can go out and have that energy of the universe help us through, so until we can get back together again and do the same thing over again.
Yeah, this year I'm definitely thankful for the independence of the judiciary and the Fourth Estate.
And may they stay independent.
So far,
I'm thankful that populism hasn't come to Canada as strongly as other countries, but anyway.
Oh, it's in Ontario though, with like Doug Ford.
Yeah, when you get the conservative Supreme Court justice to come up on you and say, you need to stay in your lane, Trump's gone too far with ticking off, people on the Supreme Court.
But Doug Ford is not a racist populist, though. I should just point out,
there's that.
But there's also Maxime Bernier too, right? Which is his People's Party of Canada. Oh, do you know who that is? Okay.
No, I don't know. I'm a dumb American. I'm scared American. I only
he used to be like a prominent member of the Conservative Party of Canada. Like he was like the foreign minister at one point and a bunch of other ones, and then he went off on his own earlier this year just because he's libertarian. One of those people started his own like populist party. called the People's Party of Canada. So any party with any people or like freedom or independence is usually like it's code for a right wing, far right party. So
yeah, when I was in Scotland, one of the people I was staying with were explaining to me the language of church naming, of free church naming, and the more synonyms for free or independent or such that were in the name of the church, the more it was restrictive of the thought and freedom of the participants. So if you got the Free Libertarian Church of Fredonia released, that was probably North Korea.
It's sort of an inverse relationship, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, and just on a point for anybody ever speaking to Americans about people in your government, if it's not the premier person, like the chancellor or the president or whatever, prime minister, assume they don't know who they are and explain their title and role and significance before making your point. Just do it. Like, it'll save you having to go back and explain it all again.
You can say with anybody though, because like I said, this guy is not that. He was prominent in that party when they were in power, but it was like a long time ago, and was basically they kicked him out of power a while ago because he was basically being subversive, and when piped down when they told him that you're making us look bad here. So yeah,
I'm just saying as a general rule.
Yeah, I say for anybody outside that country, not just America. So I just want people like, oh, it's an American thing,
Yeah, but it also very much is an American thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I get your overall point, but I don't want to like make it like, oh, Americans are so freaking dumb because they don't know who this random politician.
No, I'm saying that.
People shouldn't say that.
Yeah, I was going to say Jonathan is the only one who didn't know who Pétain is, so it's okay.
I spent too much time watching anime.
One thing is that
good for you, babe. Don't be splashed by the shit of the world.
Yeah.
I'm the one trying to defend Americans here.
Speaking of the judiciary, one thing that was coming to mind was what must it be like now when the U.S. Supreme Court has their little conference among the 9, knowing that there are traditions around the responsibilities of the 9 members of the Supreme Court, and normally the most junior member pretty much has to like serve coffee to the rest of them. I want to know what that is like right now, between now and whenever the next Supreme Court justice is appointed.
Well, the first thing I heard about Kavanaugh was that when he first got there, he was flouting all the traditions. He was I think the first time he was hearing a case, he spoke up in ways that judges don't. I mean, the justices just never do. He came up as spoke up in ways that are non-traditional, let's say. And I hear that went on behind the scenes as well. That's all I know though. And I would think that if he's a Trump appointee and he got in on the basis of all this white privilege that he probably feels, like he.
Who would have thought he would act like a spoiled brat?
Yeah,
it's shocking.
He thinks he's a shit.
I was thinking, you're talking about a job that has only been filled by about 150 people, maybe. I had to go on Wikipedia and find out what the actual answer to that is. So that, out of the millions of people who have lived in the United States and, in its 200 plus year history, it is a very exclusive club to be into, but you're still the lowest ranking member of said club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm kind of skipping over that point too. I mean, him serving coffee to the women judges, especially, is very entertaining to think about.
Yes. Yes, that would be. I would like to see that.
I mean, Elena Kagan had to do that for years, right?
Yeah.
Because it was Sotomayor, then her, and then no one until
Gorsuch.
Until Gorsuch.
Mm-hmm.
Who only had to do it for a little over a year.
Yeah. But on the wider point, you know, it's been noted, I think it's in Vox especially, they detail it well, that you know, Dr. Ford in her testimony described a party where certain people were present that took place during the week. And Kavanaugh turns up with these calendars and testifies in something he said he wrote himself and didn't show anybody, that these were his calendars and they were accurate. On July 1st, or maybe the 7th, but I think it was the 1st, was a Wednesday, and he had this thing with the brewskis, right? And the people named. And the people he named as being at the party were also people she had named as being at that party. And when the woman who was running the questioning for Dr. Ford, who was allowed to go the full time with Dr. Ford, then turned and did the same thing with Justice Kavanaugh at the time. Is he justice now? I guess. I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. When she got to bringing up that date in the calendar is exactly when Lindsey Graham lost his shit and started ranting and raving. And then from that point on, the Republicans on the committee spoke, and she never said another word. And I think the next president, Democratic president, has every right to ask the FBI to reopen the investigation that was limited under Trump and do a full investigation. So there's a full knowing of the facts around that date, given that Dr. Ford could not have known that Brett Kavanaugh had those calendars. And also they were in his possession. Did he not read them? You know, and so did he lie, or is he just stupid? And I think the American people deserve to know the answer to that question.
Why not both?
Well, they might be, and I think we have a right to know. So that's my little pitch for reopening the FBI investigation under a new president.
Just let's go cut their fucking dick off.
And there's still Robert.
Right away to the radical solution.
Investigation. I'm waiting for that shoe to drop. You know, when he's finished with.
I think we're all being very patient regarding sexual assault and etc.
No, who were you bobbiting? I missed.
No, well, I don't. Yeah,
Marina Bobbitt. I heard somebody talking about de-dicking somebody.
That was Leto. Yeah.
Part of me thinks
talking about Kavanaugh. He deserves it.
No argument here, in my opinion.
We did say, I did put in the video description. I'd probably have to change it now. We were going to talk about how big the blue wave was, but I don't know if anyone wants to actually talk about that or not. It was just I didn't know what we were going to talk about, and I needed to come up with something that was at November Patreon Hangout, so I kind of just made something up.
Well, I would like to at least mention, if there's time, and I missed obviously, but I'd like to hear a little talk about. I want to fucking gloat, just a little bit.
Go right ahead, Tom.
Well, no, I'm
your truth.
Tom has rights to gloat, considering that the president thinks it was a win for him.
Yeah. Well, except that whatever was a loss was because he wasn't on the ballot, because whatever was a win was because he supported the candidates, although like 70 or 80% of the candidates he supported lost. What I'm happy with is the final count was 40, a pickup of 40 in the House, something like that.
Yeah, 39 or 40, one of the two.
Yeah, and 8 governorships, one of which was mine, and got rid of that fucking Walker.
Yes, that guy.
And of the top 5, I think there are 5 statewide elective offices in Wisconsin. All went to Democrats. Even though the state is so badly gerrymandered that I don't know if you mentioned it already, but the Democrats got 55%, 60% of the vote.
Yep.
And got like 35% of the representation.
Yeah, in
the state, in the
Assembly and Senate,
in the Capitol. Yeah,
you have to wonder if there's actually a legitimate in government in Wisconsin anymore, because now the Republicans are moving while they still have Scott Walker in a lame duck session to sign legislation to take away powers of the governor that they gave to him from the next guy who's a Democrat.
Right. They're doing it. The thing is that if they're trying to do it in the dark, it's not in the dark. It was immediately brought to light. And and now they're doing. I mean, not that they are ashamed of doing things in the light. I mean, they're rats after all. But you think that they scurry a little bit to the dark, but no, they just push ahead. I don't know if there are any undecided races, Matthew. You mean in Wisconsin or national?
I was speaking nationally because I know there was a lot of stuff going on in Georgia and Florida.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a runoff election in at least one state. Is that Georgia? Or?
It was a couple recounts in Florida, but the Georgia race, all of them went to the Republicans in the end, but by very slow, slim margins. And Georgia especially was very surprising that it got that close.
Yeah, but I thought there was still one race, maybe not a governorship, but I think there's one race that's still that's up for runoff. Cindy Hyde.
Oh,
Smith,
right, the Mississippi race. The Mississippi race.
Senate race. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the
racist lady.
The creepy God.
The Confederate Daughters of the Confederacy.
Her mouth is. I mean, it's just a soap. Rectangle, black rectangle. Dang.
Yeah, she needs soap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was like some impropriety because like Scott Walker, for example, in Florida, it's Florida with election irregularities again.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was
Florida.
Rick Scott was Florida.
Rick Scott.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Walker is Wisconsin.
The person that worked for him or something like that. I remember it's something like similar to.
I was going to say Florida screwing up elections since November 2000.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
It's such an embarrassment. You think they would just put the money into it, but the Republicans won't do it on the state level. They won't do like a reform to actually make it better. And then the counties, I assume, have other demands like the county prison and other county functions that they need to perform, that they can't just sort of drop $2 million on a whole new voting system or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be stuck in this partisan conflict death spiral. I mean, they actually had machines that got so hot that they shut down. That's how old that equipment is.
Yeah.
And then they had to start the counts all down again and bring in air conditioners to keep the machines cool.
Yeah, but that's in the locations they didn't have enough machines, and that's by design.
Exactly.
Maryland seems to be doing pretty well, although Maryland's been accused of gerrymandering in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Steve was talking about that in his hangout.
Yeah, it's not just it's not just Republicans who do it, but Republicans did it as sort of like a coordinated national plan for decades. Like they had a 40-year plan culminating in stacking the Supreme Court to rubber stamp everything they've just left behind them. And make it so gerrymandered that you have a situation like in Wisconsin where you need a supermajority of the vote just to bring things 50-50.
Right.
Did anyone make comment on the that photo page from the congressional freshman class showing the stark difference between the Republicans and the Democrats? The Republicans were the old white men with one woman, and the Democrats were all the various colors of Benetton.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that.
I don't think I've seen the original page. I've seen images of both of those pages and
photo spreads kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, on mostly on Facebook, but yeah. So it's amazing that it's almost as though one of the parties is Democratic and the other party is fascist.
Well, it's just like between the gray hair, sorry Tom, and all the white skin is like one picture you need your sunglasses for, and the other one you don't.
Yeah.
I posted a Newsweek link to the picture.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm kind of a bit distracted by little Anna, who's clearly playing an MMO with her and her rabbit mouth.
It's a giant pink rabbit.
So fabulous.
What do you have on your screen, girl? I'm gonna lock you on. What is that? Tell us what this is.
It's a video game called Guild Wars 2.
Oh yeah.
And it's my Mesmer character, and she's a Barbie. So So all her mounts are pink, and that one is the cutest. It's a giant rabbit who makes goat noises, and it jumps very high.
This is
the best mount.
My brain is having a hard time like figuring out nerdness to cuteness ratios here.
Oh, that one is definitely super cute. I have one that is nerdy. It's the griffon. That one flies, and it's all pink and fabulous.
That's like the rabbit that woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Do not mess with me today.
My son plays games with miniatures, and he wants for Christmas he wants a gift card to a miniature store, Hero Forge, that makes miniatures to order. I mean, well, they have a basic template and options, but you can add.
He's playing what? Warhammer.
Warhammer.
No,
Warhammer. Okay.
It's Star something.
So take us around. Where are you in the game right now? What's going down in the story?
Who, me?
Yeah. Show us around.
Oh,
like let him run around. I want to see.
I'm in the jungle, so I can't take the rabbit. I just took it to show him off because it's cute. But here I can fly with, and my wings make little hearts. And
yes, I see
a
that.
little slow, but
that's very sweet.
Yeah, it's my Barbie character. She's not my main, but I finished the game with my two mains, so now I'm playing with her. And here is the jungle, and some monster plants have taken over, and I have to save the universe. Basically.
I used
I'll
to
sleep
play
better
Pong.
tonight. Knowing that you're out there.
Sponsored by Brazil.
Yeah, it sounds like Brazil.
That's why they are going to cut down all the rainforest, right?
Oh man, yeah.
It's trying to take over.
Oh, I'm getting attacked by giant frogs. Yeah,
Oh,
well, I was
Take a
just
stand
wandering
attacks.
around during the hangout. I'm not really playing while we talk. I can't focus on the two.
So you're flying through Kyrgyzstan.
Right, but I don't know if people want to watch your screen because it's more. I guess I'll go back. Okay, I'll take it off. So
Yeah, take it off.
Okay, you're off.
I was just providing a pink giant rabbit to counterpart the political talk that can
American
be
politics.
quite depressive.
Right. Screw American politics. We need that.
Generally, the rise of fascism worldwide.
I'd like to say from a sort of insular European perspective, and this does not include the UK, by the way, because the UK in its politics is very much like the US. This thing about people being nominated for life and holding their positions for life, it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's not democratic at all. This is something that you would probably maybe expect from the Catholic Church. You get someone elected, and then they are in their position until they die, basically, or until they give up their position.
Are you talking about the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
So can I explain the founders' thinking at the time?
Yeah, I know. I know of it. I know the thinking. It's just not modern at all.
No, it's completely 17th century or 18th century.
It's sort of by intention, though.
Yeah.
And also, people only live till 60, not like 80.
Yeah, because I have a background in political studies, sort of. I'm a teacher, so I didn't do a PhD or anything in the subject, but I'm interested. So I understand the thinking. It's just that it was sort of correct for the time, but fast forward 200 years and it's unmodern.
Fast forward 200 years, a lot of things are not modern, and
a
lot of what we're stuck with, because you had rich white landowning men deciding upon
can
how
we
the
talk
government should
about
work.
the fucking electoral college, please?
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to bring up. Actually,
How ridiculous is that thing?
The system designed specifically to give rural areas more power than the urban areas.
Yeah. The thing is, and this is sort of the abridged version, I guess, but it is that the founders were very skeptic towards monarchy, of course, because they blamed the British king, even though it was the British Parliament that basically shut them out of the system. This is one part of it. They didn't want tyranny from above. And the other part of it was they didn't want tyranny as they thought of it from below, which is democratic ideas.
Well, mob rule. Wild populism gone wild.
But that's the thing. Every time I just advocate for direct democracy as an anarchist myself, and I always get brought back. Okay, how can you stop the tyranny of the majority of mob rule? And I'm just like,
well, in this case, the idea of the Electoral College was that I think they were supposed to be coming out of the state legislatures, and then they just sort of changed that. And now they're delegates of the party or the representative of how many electors they got. Anyway. If the populace elected some, what's the word I'm looking for? It's
demagogue, dictator.
Demagogue, yeah. If the populace voted for a demagogue, it was supposed to be a check on that to prevent.
Exactly.
And now, of course, because it's just pro forma, it simply adds a new political calculus to how do you get an autocrat elected in America.
Yeah. The interesting thing, if I could interject, I'm sorry if I am very boring, but Thomas Jefferson was a demagogue.
Yeah.
Because he basically revolted against the aristocracy of his day, which was Alexander Hamilton and George Washington and the other Federalists.
Yeah, exactly. Thomas Jefferson came from money but played to populist passions, while Hamilton came from nothing and was an elitist.
Yeah, this is actually it's ironic, but
you're such a fangirl, Kristi.
Nerd.
Yeah.
In
America, you can become anything,
Even an elitist.
Capitalists can become an elitist, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's like Trump. He started from a lot and got more.
Yeah. Off of fraud, which was a story for a day, but again, so many other things happened. His whole business is based off of fraud, and he's helping his father with tax evasion. But wait a minute, don't we remember that?
But
I'm sure the tech giants like Bill Gates and Larry Ellison and those guys are, every time Trump talks about how successful he was from so little, they can go to their own bank records and be like, my own personal statements are much better than his, and I've hopefully haven't done anything illegal, when it comes to the tech giants. So if you look at what we do know of his financials and, all the times he's gone bankrupt and that stuff, he hasn't even kept up with the stock market, let alone bettered it. And you get someone like, Microsoft and Oracle and those companies that have done much better than the stock market. So the guy, bloviates about things he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. See, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in the with the House in the hands of the Democrats, some more pressure to get his taxes. Because I think if we had his tax returns, we would find out an awful lot of shady stuff that would maybe even bring him down.
Can I just go back quickly before we continue on Trump to the Electoral College thing, which is to say, just to say that I think that the problem isn't so much the Electoral College, it's the gerrymandering and the voter suppression and the things that are going on with the system before it gets to the Electoral College, if you see what I mean. And so I think it should be just a rubber stamp. The Electoral College should just completely reflect what the popular vote was and not even, be that far off, really. And if we have proper voting reform, and I know one of the first things the Democrats want to do is look at a federal voter rights bill, because the Voter Rights Act has not been reauthorized under the Republicans. And we can fix the thing at the core and the base, and we can have paper trails for machines and look at, universal voting and maybe a national voting holiday and some things that we can do. We can fix that problem before it gets to the Electoral College, where it ends up, being another cog in the machine that goes wrong. So just in defense of that. So, because changing the Constitution is really hard. It's really hard. And if we focus our efforts on changing the Electoral College, we'll end up having a discussion about majority vote instead of looking at how the system could just be made to reflect the will of the majority.
It's not meant to be a reflection of the will of the majority, as I pointed out. But
political scientists don't know what the will of, voters don't know what the will of the majority is. They vote for all kinds of different reasons. It's just the result. It's just the up or down vote on the incumbent.
Yeah, of course.
Or the choice if it's an open seat.
My argument against the Electoral College is there's plenty of other countries that are just as big as the United States geographically or population, and they don't need that kind of system, and they function just fine, not better.
Yeah, but you came along after seeing how fucked up ours was, and went, no, we're just going to do it much. There's proportional representation. We got a lot of options.
I know, but in the case of Australia, Canada, and Britain's former empire, they were given a time-tested model, which evolved even further as time went on, which is the Westminster one, so which is older than the American democracy.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, if you look at it, I think throughout history, the Westminster model is the most successful democratic structure. And the weird thing is, it doesn't have a written constitution.
Nope.
Which is amazing. They have enough, practices and norms to keep it. It's just not a Wild West kind of situation. But they don't actually have.
That's our modification to the Westminster model. We have a written constitution in Canada.
But you have to remember, their challenge at the time was trying to set up a form of government that really hadn't existed before, because the Westminster model doesn't have that role for the judiciary, and neither did the Romans. So I think there was also credit to be done, not only influences coming from Britain, but also on Native American soil. They were very influenced by the way power was distributed and worked within the Native American tribes. I think there's a 5 Nations agreement. Right? And so they were cobbling stuff together, not really thinking about the future, just trying to think about the immediate future as opposed to the distant future. But
I think that's just. You finish your point.
Yeah, and just to say, coming later, people had time to think about other ways of organizing the distribution of votes other than just the sort of first past the post. And so you had experiments in democracy as they started to be set up, and I think we were just we were like the beta version, before it really got going.
And it's a Republican system, right? I mean, a lot of the countries that use the Westminster model have made their own modifications to it. Like Australia has an elected Senate or upper house, which Britain doesn't, and Canada doesn't. We have a written constitution, and Britain doesn't. We have a judiciary that's more like the American one, where they sit there until I think they retire at 75 or something like that. It's not like my appointment.
David, you finish up your point, and then I have a question for David.
Yeah, and there's other modifications that other countries have made to the Westminster model over time that suit their own needs. So it's very amenable to country the conditions of that polity at whatever time you're talking about.
Yeah. So since you said you were a teacher, I was wondering if this would be a great opportunity to hear about the political history for you guys in Sweden, right? And how the kind of current form took place, or how it came to be in its current form. It's institutional history, as it were.
The institutional history of democracy in Sweden.
Yeah, and the ethos too, like some of the principles that might have guided it that were very different from 18th century Enlightenment ideas of counted as a person?
Well, the democracy basically emanated from, and this is strange because it's liberal ideas. Liberal in the sense of, this is the European sense of the idea.
Right, the non-radical sense.
I don't know what you would call it, actually. This is another one of those strange facts that when you're talking about liberals in the UK or US sense, it doesn't really make any sense from our point of view, because liberals among us are right-wing. In a way.
Just really quickly, I don't want to interrupt you, but just to say that it comes from liberalism, as in the Enlightenment idea of individual autonomy and limited government.
Yeah,
exactly. It basically comes more to the idea of personal autonomy. And so all people who are in a democracy who buy into, one person, one vote, and all that kind of equal rights come from that liberal tradition. But that's a very old version of it.
Yeah, you have to remember that Sweden, up until the mid 19th century, that's the 1800s, was a very traditional European country, with the nobles having a lot of control, the clerics having a lot of control, and the monarchy having a lot of control. So right about the mid 19th century, the 1800s, we got a parliament of two chambers, sort of like on the UK model, with a sort of House of Lords and a sort of House of Commons. It wasn't exactly that, but it's a great analogy to use. And up until about 1918, that was the model that was working in Sweden. And it was very much a rich man's democracy, so to speak. If you had money, you had the vote. If you had money, you had a lot of votes, usually. It was a rich man's democracy. The women were excluded. We actually have a sort of celebration of 100 years of democracy in Sweden, maybe this year or next, or maybe in about 2 years. No one really knows, because the legislation that brought women and most men into the vote was about 100 years ago. And also we have had a single parliament elected directly, or more or less directly by the people, since 1968 or something like that. Yeah, it's complicated, but the road to democracy in Sweden isn't like, I would say it's not like any other country. And that's probably, well, you could say that for any other country as well. But it's not like the American experience or the UK experience. And you can't really draw a straight analogy between them. And because...
exceptionalism.
Sort of.
It is. I mean, it characterizes your country and your country alone. Exceptionalism just means this is what's different about you from everybody else. And I think it's overused or sometimes misused. But exceptionalism is things that are exceptional, and this history is quite exceptional.
And these exceptions are very much tied up with the social democratic movement in Sweden as well, which is also, I would say, different from the social democratic movement in other countries, like Germany, for example.
Because the Swedish Social Democrats, they are the main party in Sweden, correct?
I don't know. The main party, it's the biggest party.
Yeah, like they hold power the most of the majority of the time. I mean,
they have held power for, say, most of the 20th century, but in recent years, not so much. No.
Okay. Because I know that they've actually been able to win like a straight majority in that system. Like they've got over 50% of the vote different times.
This is another sort of unique thing about Swedish democracy, but they've had a strict majority, where they have had more than 50% of the vote in the parliament. Actually, about one time during the entire time that they've been in power. Which is sort of when you explain to people from abroad that this is the case, the what they say. We've actually had two majority governments in Sweden during the whole of the last 100 years.
To you, does that say democracy is working, or does it say democracy is not working?
I don't really know. It's democracy.
The nature of
democracy is a system that doesn't really. It's hard to say if it's working or not. I mean, you could have a party that's really against democracy getting 50% of the vote. That's democracy working. So democracy as a system in itself, if you're just thinking about the vote count, yes, it's working.
Okay, yeah, that's a perfectly fine answer. That's why I asked to be kind of like, expand on this point a bit. It wasn't a dig. It was, really a complex question.
I know, because I have these kind of questions all the time, because I'm thinking about democracy in a Swedish sense right now, because we don't. I guess you probably know, because you're interested people. We don't have a government right now, and that's because of democracy, basically.
Yep.
So the functions are basically what, civil service then? It runs on the last government's policies?
Yeah, the last government is. I'm not. You shouldn't say they're in power, because they're just. They're holding the function of a government, but they aren't allowed really to put out any policies or anything. They're just keeping up appearances, as it were.
Okay. So is that, you said in the beginning that, way back in the beginning, you said that the people in majority, I guess at this point, are very right wing. Is it a good thing that they don't have power to make policy now?
I would say that it's a good thing. They're not in my majority. The Sweden Democrats got 17% of the vote.
Oh, okay.
The national vote, and because we have representative, it's a very. I mean, if you get 17% of the vote, you get 17% of the seats in the parliament, more or less. The thing is that what you would probably call the center right of Sweden, and just to make sure that you understand what I'm saying here, this is the Swedish way of thinking of it. They have a sort of hard time deciding what they want to do government-wise, because you need a government that's accepted by the parliament. It doesn't have to have a 50% approval rating. It just need to have a less than 50% that's not approval.
Okay.
And the situation we're in now is that two candidates have been rejected by the parliament, And one of them is the moderate, as they are calling themselves. This is the I feel always when I'm talking with anyone outside Sweden, trying to explain what kind of policies they're for. This is a sort of mixture between neoliberals and conservatives. This is the moderate party. And then you have the Christian Democrat Party, which is, I would say, nothing like the Christian Democrat Party in other parts of Europe. It's more right-wing. Those two parties feel it's a good idea to create a government that's dependent on the Sweden Democrats, and the Sweden Democrats, by the way, are their roots is in a Nazi party.
Oh.
They are. It's not fascism; it's Nazism. It's very, very clear. They are not fascists. They're not just fascists. They're Nazis. And they seem to think that's a good idea. That's been rejected by Parliament. So the next step was to try a center party candidate for prime minister, and that's been rejected. So that's the point at we're at. And if the Parliament rejects another prime minister candidate, then we'll have another election. Which will be the first time during the modern democratic era that we have another election. That we haven't gotten a prime minister from the sort of real election.
So another test of sort of traditions, as it were, what we would kind of expect about how democracy should function.
Yeah, and Kristi probably knows from her studies that this is not. It's not really. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing, but it's a new thing.
Right.
For Sweden, it hasn't happened before, so it's obviously you're anxious. You're wondering how many more seats will the Nazi fascists get in the next election.
Right. So it's a time, like in many other parts of the world, of uncertainty.
Yeah, very much. So,
like in the States here, we're uncertain as to whether our traditions will hold. We have the laws and everything, but when you have somebody like Trump and the Republican Party supporting him, it's hard to know if the traditions that we've depended on of compromise and bipartisanship are ever going to will that kick in at some point and get rid and reject extremism. And it sounds like you're kind of at that same cusp in Sweden, or a similar one. I shouldn't say the same, because your situation, as you say, is quite different.
Yeah, what's making me depressed somewhat is that every part of the discourse, what's been spoken about in the media and so on, seems to either be sort of just counting votes on the left, right, whatever, or how many concessions are you willing to make to this far right party?
Which is not willing to make any concessions, I would assume.
You shouldn't be, in my opinion, and in a majority of Parliament's opinion as well. But the thing is that it's been built up like, well, the center couldn't possibly work with the left because they have this historical anonymity between them. So because of this, you can't get a government because of these far right Nazis. They are Nazis, by the way. They're not fascists. They are Nazis.
If I could step out and kind of take this a bit more globally and then really nerd out as a political scientist, we have a concept in political science called political realignments, where things change because of an event or cultural shifts or demographic changes or whatever else. But basically, the country undergoes it goes from one kind of politics to another kind of politics. So for the Americans, you could look at the example of sort of the North-South divide and how that used to really kind of define politics, Southern Republicans and Northern Democrats or Western Democrats or whatever. But now, because of migration and immigration and cultural changes, and also people moving to the cities and leaving rural areas, you're seeing now basically a new we're undergoing a new political realignment, and our institutions are kind of creaking as this. It's almost like an earthquake, if you can think about it as a plates of political attitudes and power shifts, and that those kind of creaks that we're feeling with this is the first time it's happened, or how did Trump get elected? That's the sort of the institutions now bearing out those changes. And I think that's at least for me, it's a useful way to think about it.
Yep.
You're right, Kristi, but it actually isn't the first time we've had it in Sweden.
I don't know your history, so I don't want to talk.
I of course, but we had it 100 years ago because there were when Sweden were democratized, when the parliament became a democracy, basically, because the parliament has existed for 500 years. And we didn't have a revolution or anything. It's just the parliament, the rules for the parliament changed so that people could elect members to parliament more or less directly, proportionally. And the Sweden Democrats, the party with 17% of the seats, they have their direct roots from the movement that was against democratization back then, 100 years ago. We also had about 20 years ago, we had a right-wing wave in the early 90s, which is still remembered by people. And then we had also a right-wing party, a populist party, who got seats in the parliament. They died quite rapidly because of infighting and so on. But the tradition has been there for 100 years, and you shouldn't disregard the tradition. The tradition has been there all the time for 100 years. We had quite a lot of people in Sweden during the Second World War. Even though we weren't involved ourselves in that war, we had people that were quite openly on the Nazi side of that war. And they weren't prosecuted or anything. They just kept on going after the war. And their tradition has been carried over by their descendants until now.
Do you know if people from that point of view during the Second World War, do you know if any of them fought as like in the Ausland Waffen-SS forces?
Yep. The founders of the Sweden Democrats were avid Nazis. And at least one of them fought for the Waffen-SS.
Okay. Do you know if there was a Waffen-SS Sweden unit in the German army?
Well, not specifically Swedish. I think it was a Nordic. There was a Nordic division, Nordland division.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and quite a lot of Swedes participated in that, and let's not forget that Sweden was sort of part of that Nord-Germanic division of. There were quite a lot of Swedes who thought that Germany was the role model, regardless of politics. I mean, this is from the early 1900s on, and many thought that Germany losing World War I was a big setback, but they didn't think that Germany necessarily was bad because of that.
Does your social welfare system does that go back at all to Bismarck and in the German model?
Probably, because the German Social Democratic Party once was the largest in the world. And they were the role model for other social democratic parties. The thing about the Swedish Social Democratic Party is, as someone pointed out, that they tended to trust in their leaders, and it became a very leader-heavy party. It had a lot of popular support, but it was very leader-heavy. So without leaders, without charismatic leaders, it would tend to not do that well.
Okay.
And that's very true the last 20 years or so, I would think.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very complicated. It's very hard to just summarize it in a few sentences, but
just trying to get my
politics as a whole is very complicated.
Yeah. I understand. I'm getting that from what you're saying. I'm just trying to hook it up with things that I do know about, and that's so my questions are probably pretty elementary.
And useful.
I understand it, because when I look at Swedish politics and I contrast it to American politics, in some ways it's very similar, but on a systematic level, it's very, very different.
Yeah.
It's more like American football.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well, ours, the more you talk about it, the more our system, in some ways, in form, seems pretty clean. You have elections at set times, and whoever gets the majority, and because it's typically a two-party race. The majority makes the government, and it's sort of, from that formal sense, it seems kind of clean and easier to understand, but it has the problems of two-party systems.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this is that Sweden could very well have ended up a two-party system as well, but the right didn't want that, because they were anxious that the Social Democrats would basically have an absolute majority. So they went for proportional representation in the parliament rather than the first past the post system.
Sounds like that didn't work out so well for them, though.
Well, it sounds like pretty much any system can screw up in the wrong hands.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
I think what most any system really just needs is just a large, well-informed population or populace, or just the people being well-informed about the issues and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think that's the main problem of Swedish politics at the moment, because a part of it is that the Swedish population seem to I'm not that kind of person who would say that the Swedish population isn't educated enough, but Swedish politics certainly is at a very moronic level at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, because it's all about, oh, this person is a moron and this person is a moron. Yeah, it's very much, and in this way, it very much reflects the Trumpian kind of politics. So, following Brexit at the moment, it's like, what the. How did these people come to hold these positions? How did these people come to power? Because they are acting like children in a kindergarten. You know?
I think you can swear here if you want to. You sound like you want to.
Yeah. I'm just trying to be. I'm avoiding it.
Okay. I typically don't. I think I've been fairly clean this
Yeah, your swear jar is pretty empty this episode.
I know. What the fuck is up with that? God
damn. I mean, fucking right. I mean, we can swear on this stream.
Well, I did say shit. I did say shit.
At one point.
I mean, this is a stream where Kristi said cunt before. Sorry, Kristi.
Yeah, I do.
And Kristi.
And
she sang the
I like that word.
song.
Yeah. I sort of prefer the Kristi and Kev happy hours because it's just silly.
Yes, it's very much so.
Right.
Well, one of the criticisms,
and the main point of it is like you talk about serious shit, but most of it is just
banter.
Yeah.
Well, under the episode where Sargon was, sometimes people will come along and go, "How could you treat an invited guest so rudely?" And then they'd also say things like, "Oh, Kristi, that part where you guys had a serious discussion was good. Lose Kev, he just brings you down and makes dick jokes." And I was saying to Kev off air just last Friday after reading those, I was like, "But I have you on because you make dick jokes, Kevin. You're like my id. You say the things I can't say." Like, I have to have a level of professionalism, but you can say them and I can laugh at them and I can riff on them in a G-rated way. So that's, it is. It's like, it's my alter ego when I'm on the show with them.
Avatar.
You need someone to say that what she said.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like I have a couple of groups on Facebook, and this is in Swedish, so no one else will know what it's all about. But it's like groups that are sort of trying to make fun of everything, and most of the time it's just you see these people think it's funny because it's racist. And your first instinct is to, oh, you're so bad. And I think these people are mad. I think these people, if you think that's funny, that's a problem you have.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But you see in these kind of groups what people think is funny. And because of this, you can know what people in the general public think is funny. And what people think is funny usually also reflect what their political views are.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Punching up, punching down.
Yeah, and they think they're punching down when they're making fun of immigrants and so on in a very racist way. Because they have somehow gotten they have this idea that immigrants somehow is the representatives of the states. How? I don't know. But for some reason.
Well, if we could make this all about me again.
It's your hangout. It is your stream. We're just your
never swear.
One of the curious.
Patrons, so we pay for this. We pay for this. Your podium.
On the Sargon stream afterwards, because we did get stream sniped by Medicare, and we had so many people come over, and then people who watched it but were watching it at his stream, I think a lot of them came over and watched it, the whole thing, on ours. And then it got a buzz, even though like hardly anybody made YouTube videos about it. And like tons of people were talking about it, and mine has had like 20,000 views on it.
Yeah.
And
well deserved.
yeah, well, thanks. But what was amazing to me was the number of times people would say, I had this impression of you of being this extremist blue-haired feminist, but watching you pwn Carl was like the funniest thing I've ever seen, and it really humanized you to me. And I didn't realize that you were actually like a real person, and I might come back and watch another show. And I think that was the power. When the other thing that a couple of people I saw were commenting on, it came up in the chats when I went, and I'm sorry, I went and watched the chats because I was curious as to what they were saying. But some people were saying, I love Kristi's laugh, and talking about how my laugh was so genuine, or I can't stop laughing with her. And that power of humor, to like make you connect to something. I kind of underestimated it before, but it really does make you like somebody more if you can make them laugh. And I think, like the focus for people who think racism is funny is kind of like, you need to move on to other things that are funny for different reasons, because, this is just so first grade. Like, this is so like, not even like first graders are smarter than finding some of this stuff funny. But the use of humor to convey ideas or to humanize people or dehumanize people is, I think, kind of wired into us. Laughter is a pretty primal thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I gave the impression that I'm very serious all the time. I use humor all of the time. That's about 99% of everything I say about politics is humor. But I think
it's your deadpan delivery. I think Americans are like, he's so serious all the time.
Yes, and I'm a 90s child, so ironic humor, which was a big thing in Sweden about that time. I don't know how it was internationally, but in Sweden, ironic humor was the big thing about during the 90s. But anyway, I think that what you did to Sagan was making him ridiculous without actually making fun of him a lot. You just, as you said, you just repeated what he had said before in a way that made him look absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. It was so
because
much fun.
He is ridiculous. I mean, him and his fellow. I mean, Kev has done a series of about 50 videos about this, but they are. What are these people? How did these people get so much attention from people? It's incredible to me.
Well, and I adore Kevin. You guys know that we're really, really good friends, and we just joke about everything. But one of the things when he's done things, we've known each other going on over 2 years now, and he'll say, "How do you think I did?" And I'll tell him what I thought was good. And the criticism I always have is you always kind of say yes, but when he throws out that crap, say no, I disagree, and here's why. And so that was the big change in his interaction with Kev, is that I wasn't just going to let him go, oh, there's 7 just Democrats. I mean, my whole point was to try to get him to look at the districts where they were elected to see how representative they were of the people in those districts. That's not a left-wing takeover. That's democracy, right? And I compared that with the Steve King race, where even though former Republicans called him neo-Nazi endorsed, he still got elected.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
So that's also democracy. And that was the point I was trying to get him to. But now, like I said, I'll just look that kind of stuff up and move on and smack him with some more facts. Because just asking him basic questions like, well, the left are criticizing, trying to take down voter ID laws. Like, who said that? Like, you have a quote from somebody? Like, who are you talking about? Was that Nancy Pelosi? Like, who do you have in mind here, Carl? And when you do that, he just that's not being charitable anymore. And like, no, fuck you, man. I'm not gonna be charitable. You come to my house, you come late, and then you talk shit, and I just ask you for basics, and you can't do it. No, you fail. Hell, go away. So yeah, that was amazing. And also, I've been watching a lot of rap battles, so I'm getting all kinds of attitudes.
I think the reason why these people are so popular and have hundreds of thousands to sometimes over 1 million in some cases with the Amazing Atheists is because they've been driven online because they can't find this kind of support. You know, it's therapy, if you want to call it, like group therapy in real life, because these people have to hide it in real life because otherwise they would be shunned because the majority of the people in the world don't support this stuff, you know, white supremacy and homophobia and whatever else they espouse. But yeah, that's it's like the internet always makes these people look more powerful than they really are. It's the internet magnification effect, you know. But
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm done. Go ahead, Tom.
I just saying, it's been over 2 hours. I am old. I don't know. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I'm fading. You guys,
okay. I was actually going to close up the shop, and then we started talking about the Sargon thing, and I got all excited again. But
the only thing.
I'm sorry. I think I was sort of.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about Sargon is to be aware that he's being attacked from the left and the right.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, there is some Schadenfreude there, but that doesn't mean that everybody who's giving you credit for attacking him is on your side. Is on our side, and I worry about you know, people getting the impression, not us, but people getting the impression that somehow there is
they've already moved on to other dramas. Like, this is last month's news. Like I
know, but that's the only, you know, but I'm behind the times, so you know, that's the only thing I
can't really control who
people.
comes over, and if they don't violate the rules, if they post something, and also there's a lot of comments on there. But I don't know. I don't really, you know, don't think it's fair to say, oh, people I disagree with are entertained by something you did for yourself. That's not on me though, because we did it.
No. Please don't take that away. I think there's a potential out there for the perception of a common cause from the left and the right, and it's not. Maybe I'm probably overthinking this or underthinking this. So
it was just a pwning of Carl. It was it was a one-off. I don't see any common cause other than everybody finds Carl getting pwned funny.
Then it's you know.
I would say it's probably because he's presented himself as a centrist. He's in the middle of the spectrum. And now that's sort of coming back to haunt him. He's getting pwned from the left and the right.
Yeah, and he came to get red meat from us. He came looking for a win.
Yeah, that part of it I don't understand at all.
Yeah. Okay, well, obviously I'm making less sense than normal.
No, I just wanted to be on the record because I've heard that kind of Twitter chatter around, and I haven't had a chance to go on the record, so this was it.
Okay, well there you go. I gave you that chance, and I'm losing.
The last thing I'm going to say is, before anybody leaves, is new rule in the Hangout: people don't just ghost. Because I'm sometimes looking at the chat, or I'm like making sure the windows are making a lot of noise or whatever, and people I look up and they're gone. Like Mariana later, so people have to interrupt and say, "Hey guys, I'm going now." Even if it's in the middle of a conversation, because I want to be able to say goodbye. New rule. Okay, that's it. So thank you guys for hanging in the Hangout. Tom, you can go just after we do the goodbye to everybody, and we'll see each other in the December Hangout, which I have no idea when it will be yet because we haven't decided.
Before Christmas, probably, yeah.
I've been Kristi. The chat's been awesome. People in the future watching. Why did you go this long? But thanks for watching all the way to the end. And
because they love you, Kristi.
We're going to do the big goodbye for me and goodbye for my patrons. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Sargon is like Kristi's African cat because she always perks up whenever we talk
about it. Wait, I have to hit goodbye. Hold on, stop. Let me hit stop.